Hey, friends, this is Todd. Welcome to the Worship Circle podcast. I'm honored to have my friend and sister, Christy Nockels, on. Welcome, Christy.
Hello.
Hello.
So glad to be here.
We've got Christy's an OG, and in fact, Worship Circle started with Christy and me back. Christy, I can't remember if it was 2014, 2013, sometime back in the time y'all lived in Alpharetta. Those were good days and a long season ago, but much life has happened since then. Annie Rose was a baby. Not very big back in those days.
Totally. She was a baby.
What happened at the time?
I know.
But we wouldn't be doing this without Chrissy's heart. Her heart and just life have imprinted so many people in worship, specifically females, but men too. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But Christy, I know we've done interviews before. I've done interviews with you and Nathan, but I kind of wanted to steer this one toward just really seeing the women out there, and those that lead worship in churches and have a call in their life and a gift. But before we get into that, I just wanted to start with how you got into this thing. I don't know. I know you said it before, but were you 3? Were you 5? Were you 6? And what was it like to sing and then have people go, "Hey, can you do that again?"
Yeah. Well, so my dad was a pastor my whole life. So I was raised from the time I was, I think the first time I sang on stage, I was 7.
Okay.
And I sang this song by Evie. Do you remember Evie? Give Them All to Jesus. Mm-hmm. That was my first solo. But my mom was very musical. She taught piano my whole life. She would sit at the piano with me. She taught me how to harmonize. And then my dad was actually a worship leader before he was a teaching pastor. And so the 3 of us would sing a lot. So even in church, like growing up, we would sing trio and so it kind of started out that way. But then really, as my faith was becoming my own, I was around Annie's age, really 18, our youngest. Around that time, it was so beautiful. God was doing so much in my own heart. And then it was like I was really growing as a songwriter in that same season. And also in that same season, I had a worship leader in my life, the same as John Kilgore. And he was the, music director of our church, but really was trying to shift, the church to just, move from just singing about God to actually singing to God. And he's like, let's let this be about the presence of God and lead people. And right at that same time, he was like, "Christy, you have a gift, and he would over and over on Sundays sometimes put me in front of, 100-voice choir.
Oh boy.
And I'm, at 18 years old and we're singing Brooklyn Tabernacle songs and I'm just falling in love with God while also falling in love with what it looks like to be able to write songs that have truth in them and sing that and then worship God. It was just this beautiful time. And then I met Nathan actually when I was 19, just that next year, my husband. And so such a beautiful time. And he had a friend, Charlie Hall, and they
Charlie.
Hey, Charlie. They had gone to high school together, actually probably junior high and high school. And I actually met Charlie before I met Nathan. So it was just kind of like, we laugh, it's like 7 degrees of separation from Nathan Nockels for a while there. But I ended up kind of just, as Nathan and I were dating, ended up joining into what they were doing. They were already leading kind of a collegiate audience at that time, kind of Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas. And God was doing a lot through their ministry. They were just called Nathan and Charlie, and they were making albums.
So original.
And and I just, it was like a natural segue for me to just join in really with what they were doing. So that was this entry point. And we made this album that a guy in our church just helped us, do this custom album. And we just thought it was for our little church. But really, Louis Giglio is the one that got a hold of that little custom album. All the way, we got this email from Louis. That's how we kind of got into Passion and all those years. So just really humble beginning, honestly, but beautiful.
I heard that album at my friend Bill Willett's house, who lived in our neighborhood. We were doing 722, and I'm like, "Who is this?" It's like it was just really fresh and good. Wow. What was it like for you? What was some of the first songs you wrote, just you.
Mhm.
And did that
Yeah.
happen before Nate and Charlie were around?
Yeah, I mean, nothing that I ever recorded. I don't think anything I wrote on my own. Maybe I had started one, is called Stronghold, Lord, You Are My Stronghold.
Yeah.
That was, I think, maybe on, definitely on a Watermark album.
Yeah.
And Nathan helped me finish that, and that was when we were still dating.
Okay.
And that's, Psalm 27, and that one, has kind of stood the test of time a little bit. But I really didn't. That was another thing, is I really started developing as a songwriter after I met Nathan.
Okay.
So it was like, we always laugh. It was like a musical marriage as much as it was us falling in love.
Yeah. Well, there's so much to your story, you guys together story, Watermark journey, passion. There's just so many, there's so much we could talk about that, and you've talked about it on other podcast interviews we've done. But one of the things I've always loved about you, Christy, is your lyrics and what you guys write are just so, they're so like thick and right and backed by scripture. And it's like, I remember hearing some of you guys' projects, and I was going through learning about identity in Christ, and so much of that was in the music. And I was like, I don't hear anybody else really digging into some of the stuff you guys were hitting on, but it was beautiful, the music. So thank you. And I've said this before on worship circle sessions, but I kind of wanted to hit a few records you've done over the past 10, 15 years that have really touched me in a powerful way. And I tell you this all the time, but Into the Glorious. I remember Nathan was working with us at North Point, and he had talked about the album being wrapped up, and I didn't dig into it immediately. There was just so much going on in my life. But then later, listened to it, and it really ministered to my heart. And so I wanted to go back to that album. Was something happening preceding that record that brought that album into fruition, those songs you were writing? I know Beloved was on there. Were you going through anything? I mean, you know that as you write and you guys write, there's always something, a season that lends itself into the language of what you're about to write.
Yeah.
But what was specifically going on in your story at that time? And I'd love to start there, because it's really what helped launch me into being loved by God. Like the journey of that record meant that much to me. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to go, well, this is what was going on behind the scenes.
Well, it was probably one of the most pivotal seasons of my whole life up to today. And it was just that God was launching me into a season of understanding how to be loved by Him.
Yeah.
And, I eventually would write a book about it, but really just learning to live from Him rather than just for Him. I was an expert on knowing how to live for Him and how to, run with the banner of ministry and all those things. But He showed me very clearly in His kindness that I got to just be His daughter. And what would it be like to actually live from that place of getting to be His kid and learning? And He actually asked me to lay down my career for about 5 years. And so leading up to Into the Glorious, I had done just that. And it was so sweet, because that was the main focus of that was like, don't miss this opportunity to actually mother your children. But how beautiful that, like, that shift of me seeing my kids, for who they are and learning to love them and take care of them. I was learning to be His kid. And it was just this beautiful season of getting to be a daughter. And that shifted everything in my entire life. And I didn't understand that I could actually just be in communication and in union with Him in the mundane. And I had this minivan that's where I wrote most of those songs, Todd.
I remember that minivan.
Yeah. For, I think, 9 years, I drove that minivan. And I just remember it was like, God was like, Christy, I'm right here with you. And His presence being with me wherever I was, I learned to just be able to literally, like, songwrite in the carpool line or just, and it was such a beautiful season. So all those songs definitely came out of what that season meant for me, and how honestly it altered and changed my life. And I believe the life and longevity of not not only our family, but even just ministry. So, yeah.
So good. And then, some years after that, it's apropos that you're talking about childlike faith and being loved by God, because then you guys, I remember you posting, like, we got a special project coming up, and you weren't really telling anybody, and then all of a sudden the Lullabies album comes out.
Yeah.
What was that? And it's crazy, and you guys know just from the numbers, but it's resonated with so many people.
Mm-hmm.
But what was the, how did the decision come with you to say, this is what what I want to do next?
Mm-hmm.
Did it come out of that continued journey from being loved by God as a child?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there were kind of the funny part was like, I had asked, I was in a record deal for a while, and I kept asking, can I do a Christmas record? Can I do a lullaby record? And they were always like, no. So part of it was like, I couldn't wait. It was like, so we've been independent for the last decade. And that when we decided to go independent again, it was like, oh my goodness, it's time. And so, but yes, I mean, a lot of those lullabies had also been born out of like literally, those moments in the rocking chair with my kids, like learning to be present in that season with them and not rush through.
Right.
Even moments like bedtime when you kind of are like, I just want to get them down so I can have time to myself, whatever. But the Lord was like, again, like teaching me to like hear his song over me, sing that song over my kids. And so a lot of those lullabies were born out of that season as well. And yeah, it's just been incredible to hear the stories.
Mm-hmm.
Like we never outgrow longing to be sung over about God's love for us, and how we can also impart that song to our kids or whoever we're around. It's beautiful.
Just off the top of my head, there's got to be something there too with what you're saying about that was in your heart years ago. And for those listening, you've got stuff in your heart.
Yeah.
And the banner in which we serve under sometimes won't get your dream.
That's right.
And it's okay to continue to dream, and we have to continue to dream. But I love the fact that once you guys had the ability to dream and just create, which is so of God, and your freedom, that it's like literally the number one thing that people have resonated with you.
Yeah.
And how many kids have been rocked to sleep? How many adults have wept because they feel like they're going back to childhood because of these lullabies that were for a while something that people were like, that doesn't. I just love that about you guys doing that. It was so risky, and yet it wasn't. And yet God always shows up. To those listening, there's always some unique glory he's put in you that's risky, and it's like, should I dare to try to do that? And Christy and I would probably say yes.
Yes.
That's where the magic is. It's like, that's where you being you is, and you coming alive and doing the one thing on earth that you can do. So I love that about your story. Then King Who Never Sleeps was the follow-up to that. And that was, what was it like bringing that project to life after the success of the Be Held project? Was it like, oh no, what do we do? Or
some of that at first. And then we just kind of had to get over it because definitely the Lord just finally gave, we always kind of thought we'll do another one. But then it's like, I always wait until there's clear vision.
Yeah.
And once there was, it was like, if Be Held kind of was being comforted by the love of God, King Who Never Sleeps is being comforted that we belong to the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's why we did like a crest on the front of the artwork for that album, because it's just our place in his kingdom. He's delivered us from the realm of darkness into the kingdom of light. And so there's comfort in even getting to be his priesthood. And so that King Who Never Sleeps has been so sweet to, deliver as well.
So good. Well, in the words of your husband, I want to turn a corner right now.
Yep, let's do it.
Nathan always says, hey, let's turn a corner. But as I was preparing for this and just talking to some dear friends who are women who have been in worship leading, I was like, tell me what it's been like for you, growing up in the church, some of the stuff that was really hard about being sometimes the only woman on stage, sometimes But I was just like, I wonder if Chrissy and I could tackle this topic a little bit, because you've led you've mentored so many women. You're obviously a woman. You were in the early days of Passion like the only female voice there, and just kind of what it's like to be a woman in what has been a male dominated culture.
Mm.
And I want to, just as your brother and on behalf of all the other brothers, open up this can of worms, which this is not a can of worms, but you've been in small group with women who I know have wept because there's been harm, or there's been misunderstanding, or there's been fear in leadership. And I've got this gift and this voice, but how do I navigate that? So I just wanted to go down that road a little bit with you by asking, what are some of the stories you have of your own journey, and also as a small group leader, and what it's been like for them just on their journey. Some of the exceptional things of being the woman carrying this mantle of worship leadership, and also some of the heartache and some of the stories that are hard to hear, but we need to hear them so that we can wake up and be caring people to one another. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. Yeah. Goodness. I mean, I think as it was happening in those early years, it never dawned on me like I'm one of the only women. You know what I mean? It just, in those early years, of course, now as I look back, and then all that, God has done over the years of just how women are now leading, in so many different capacities.
Right.
But back then, I was really truly like looking back, like, almost like had a machete and kind of like, just like charting our path. Like, I was like, Lord, help me.
Yeah.
But I remember one of those earliest moments as a woman where it was so sweet of the Lord to show me this, but it was like savage in the moment of like realizing how much I was trying to be validated by either getting to lead or by someone who could put me in the position to lead. And so validation, I think, was a huge one for the Lord to show me, like, honestly, like, I will never forget the actual moment where he like revealed that to me. And he was like, you realize, right, that I'm your maker. Like, I'm the only person who can put my thumbprint on you and say, like, you are mine. I made you. And it delivered me like in the deepest way when I could just honestly confess that out loud, that like I am like spending so much energy and time and trying to get this person's approval. And then it's like what the Lord showed me is like often, when that's happening, it's like for whatever reason, like you're like, is this person actually in on it? And and it's like they're like the one person that I think like actually maybe cannot stand me. So it's like it just that the opposition of what is happening actually in that like fleshy, savage place, and the Lord revealing that in His kindness of just like, daughter, like, don't you see, like, I made you, and when you live from my validation, not only, it's like once I started doing that, like crazy enough, like that person not only started to kind of lift whatever that was, like that sort of what felt oppressive, not only did that lift, but it was like so sweet in that like, oh, I actually could just see that person for the human they are. They make mistakes. They they need God's approval too. And then it was all of a sudden like God's approval was so much deeper and so much more satisfying. Like it just, I was satisfied. Like there was a contentment.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest stories that I remember, especially, I know a lot of women, because we've had that. I've had that conversation with a lot of women.
Yeah.
But I think it goes for men too. It's for all of us.
Right.
But I also think that it really, as far as like male and female leadership together, I think that is the picture.
Yes.
We are Imago Dei, and we are made in His image. And it really is like over the years, I've come to look at it like a marriage in a lot of ways. And and there is like a partnership
Right.
in that. And when we are all living from that place of being validated by God, and in fact, this morning as I was getting ready, I was thinking about like our voice in terms of not just our physical voice, but our voice in terms of calling.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was just thinking about, like literally an acronym came to me.
Of course it did.
I promise. It came fast.
Right.
But it was like voice, like validation, opposition,
Wow.
influence, contentment, and then every day. And so like validation, no, and then opposition, I was like, oh, we have to know who the real enemy is.
Wow.
And I think so many times we can take, this is another O word, but take, the bait of the enemy, which is offense.
Yeah.
And so many times like our teams can get in opposition because we think, oh, because that person's not letting me lead, but like, and feel free to interject anytime, but just,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like understanding who the real enemy is huge. Where's our opposition actually coming from? We don't wrestle against flesh and blood.
Let's pause at the O, the opposition, because you and I with Worship Circle have been on a journey with like family of origin story.
Yes.
And I was thinking about how much like friction there is on a team because someone's still angry at their dad or their mom, or they were like, for the guy who said they're the worship pastor and there's a strong female who's got a gift, who's got the glory of God in her, who needs to be part of that equation, but he is struggling because his mom hurt the crud out of his heart. And subconsciously, he's putting that on that woman who's beautiful, who has a gift. And it's almost like there's a war going on, and that comes out on the stage.
That's right.
And so it's like there's so much the enemy tries to do to steal, kill, and destroy that happened way before we ever got on the stage.
That's right.
And so our ability to be curious, and this is what you and I would say to the teams now about, is there more going on here that's going than is really going on here? And the answer usually is always yes. It's never about the person in front of you.
That's right.
It's about the baggage you've been carrying and the splinter that's been in your foot your whole life that's festering, and that person is getting the result of that pain.
Yeah.
And so I would imagine you've experienced that. I know I have.
Yeah.
And it's like to be able in the moment go, wait a minute, what's this really about?
Yeah.
Can you resonate with that?
Absolutely. And I was thinking, like, I know it's hard. It's hard work to do story work like this. But imagine if this was in some way like a sacred, open dialogue with your team, and that you could go in with that framework.
Right.
Okay, like, where is our validation coming from? Who is the real enemy? Where is the opposition coming from? And like you're saying, potentially doing that work even as a team of like, where are these conflicts coming, how are they arising? Like, but like you said, what's the deeper narrative that's maybe from, like you said, the enemy's always coming after, like, to steal, kill, and destroy
that's so good.
The glory of our lives. And that kind of led me into actually like that, the next one's influence. And it's like, that can often, just like we just said, create a narrative, that we're even leading from. Or like you said, maybe we're afraid. My friend Megan reminded me just the other week, like, everything is either done out of fear or love.
Yep.
And perfect love casts out fear, which is that's so important that we're living from that validation, that perfect love that casts out fear. And then I was going to say, even just with opposition, like praying for each other as a team, like praying for the leader who maybe won't give you the shot, and what does it look like to live in prayer with that? And then that influence, like I thought about just what is influencing us? What is the narrative we're believing? I even thought about, are we scrolling? Are we in scripture? Like, what is the influence of, kind of what is influencing us each day. And then I thought about just that place of contentment, which, is kind of my life story of just being able to abide in God's presence and that being a part of the everyday. And I've thought about, I remember one time I was just sitting there looking at the word content, and the Lord was just like, you realize that's also the word content. And he was like, Christy, the content will come out of you being content in me, in that place of abiding. And then just the last one was every day. And I thought about just, and this is big for women, I think, especially because we are maybe looking for, the place to lead. And I thought about, our platform, like leading on Sunday mornings is not our platform, but the everyday is actually the platform I've talked about before, our song, the life song, that is ours. So that was voice. That was the acronym he gave me this morning.
That is beautiful. It's so timely and so you to come up with an acronym that helps us all. So let's talk about a couple of practical things. Well, as you're talking, I'm thinking about the systems that some of us are in where there's planning center.
Yeah.
And there's, I got picked to lead X amount of times this month.
Right.
And, this next month they want me to lead X amount of times. And then for some people, it's like that changes without notice. Like you get the planning center invite and you've dealt with this probably with your girls in your group, but it's like there was no conversation.
Yeah.
How can we, woman to there's a bunch of conversations we need to have, but I was just going to get your perspective on, there's a lot that's wrong with systems that are broken in the church.
Yeah.
And there's hearts and there's beautiful people made in God's image that are involved, and there is a real enemy. So how can we, let's start with like woman to woman. How can we, with our own insecurities, wanting to live in that place of knowing whose we are, how can we do something to come against the enemy, woman to woman, conversation that would allow us to say, I'm for you. I'm here, come rain or shine, come planning center invite or not. Like who we are as sisters matters more than the stage plot from Sunday to Sunday.
Totally.
There's that love you talk about just working with so many women in your small groups and mentoring through the years. Any advice you would give women if you've got if they've got somebody in their life or other women in their life that feel like competition or that thing exists where it's just like, man, I'm going to get anxious going to church because so-and-so's there and they always get asked to do this and I don't get asked to do this,
Yeah. Yeah.
How do we come against the enemy without in a relationship?
Yeah. Well, I remember, early on realizing kind of when there was a season in my life when I was sort of in charge of who was leading.
Yeah.
And I figured out really quick that it is super important to get those women across the table from each other, just eating chips and salsa and stuff, and away from the platform of leading at church and what that looks like just during the week, whether that's the same night, once a week or, once a month or whatever that looks like. But the more that you can actually get women across from each other, or even honestly, the intimacy of being around the table, of breaking bread together, I have found will break down so much of that. And of course, if you are a woman leader and you are over maybe some other women leaders, just whatever you can to even have those conversations. I mean, I remember very early on, a female leader in our lives had us as women around a circle, and she invited us basically to say something across the room to whoever the Lord led you to say it to and affirm. Just pick out one thing about that woman that you want to affirm out loud. And it ended up being this tearful, beautiful moment that I don't even think she saw coming. I think she was just kind of more like, let's stop all this, like, comparison and jealousy. She could sense that it was happening. And she was a little bit older and comfortable in her own skin and just was like, let's just do this. And it ended up being a very tearful thing that brought some things out into the light. And if anything, it showed us like how hard it is sometimes for women just to affirm each other out loud. But I think the more that you can even practice that in your own life. And I remember from that day forward, I was like, I'm going to practice that in my own life of being able to look another woman, especially another leader, worship leader who's doing what I do, look them in the eye and to be able just to affirm that person out loud. It just snuffs out the narrative of the enemy. And it gets you, I think too, just the more you can get off the platform of the Sunday and into the everyday with each other, going to coffee, being in community, that it will take care of so much of it.
Yeah.
Just
that's good
on its own. But
and for those of you who are in charge of lots of people, and this resonates with you, but the planning center invite is a real thing that I lived in, and you would say this too, always make it a point to have a relationship that's real with people and give them a heads up in life before you pull the rug out from under their feet.
Totally.
Like,
yes.
It's like, if you don't want somebody to be on the stage anymore, that the person's worth so much and their heart is worth so much. Have that loving conversation well in advance of the invites going out. So the whole team's not going, where's so-and-so? That's just, I've seen that hurt so many people through the years. We get so busy doing, especially in larger churches with multiple campuses. It's like, you got to get this done. We got to be people scheduled. And we do it before we have the conversations with people that we're just going to leave bodies along the road as we go down the road,
Yeah.
What about women who are in leadership, who are under the authority of a guy who's the worship pastor, and there's friction there, either disagreement or the woman doesn't feel like she's been given a voice in the creativity aspect, the whole aspect of the service, and she does have a voice that needs to be heard. How do you, as for us brothers, how do you bring that up in a way that fosters goodness and healing in relationship with a team? And as we said before, some of it could totally not even be about the person. It could be about baggage the leader that's the guy's carrying. But I don't know if you've had any experience or stories of girls that have been in your groups that like, man, I really needed to have a conversation. And I had the conversation, it went well, and this is how I handled it,
Yeah. It's hard because sometimes there maybe isn't a channel where having that conversation is even an option, So I've talked to women for guys, that would be a great thing to know of just like, oh, we need actually like a place where that channel of communication can even happen.
Yeah.
And just making sure that you are available and that, it just that can even happen, number one. But then when it does, I think, like I said earlier, just there's something about the partnership of it. Of course I can't help but, I think of Philippians 2, of course, of just like considering others, more highly and they're, not looking at your own interests, but the interests of others. And of course it goes into humility, what that looks like. And Christ, obviously, Jesus, was our total example of what this is supposed to look like. And so I think it's important that both sides, if that conversation does get to happen, both sides come in with that humility, just like you would hope in a marriage would be what's true. And then, of course, just I think about the act of like just service, like in in friendship or in marriage or that partnership of, how can I serve you?
Yeah.
I think you've had us ask this question in worship circle, like, what do you need right now?
Right.
And I think that's just like, even for guys, I mean, that's just, I can't even imagine, being a female on a staff and not knowing how to even approach the conversation. But if like the person I'm needing to like have the conversation with just says like, what do you need right now?
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Amazing.
It is. And so like that humility, and then like how can I serve? Like, what is it,
Yeah.
And then I think, just, I even thought about in marriage, how if there's ever, a conversation that feels really hard to have,
Mm-hmm.
where there's just stuff that you don't feel like would be appropriate to even like bring to the leader's attention, then, and I'm learning this as a parent right now more than anything else I'm learning, is that prayer is our first defense.
Right.
It's not last defense. And so there have been times, and Nathan knows this, there have been times where it was like, I was needing and longing for something so specific, like in our relationship. And I prayed so specifically, and I literally watched God change him. Like, I literally,
Wow.
and I never told my mom, I never told my friends, I never told anybody but God. And Nathan knows these things, like I said, but like that's a powerful way for us as women, and even the guy, like if there is like guy and, girl friction on a team, if that is happening, like prayer is your first defense, and learning to pray for the actual thing that you want and need to see happen, praying for what's right to actually unfold, and praying for each other in a way that it's like so specific. I've been blown away through the years that the times I've done that, even not just in our marriage, but the times that I've prayed so specifically about things, about hard conversations, and watched God literally shift something, through prayer. So I think it's so important to also be praying into it like that.
Thanks, Christy. This is so helpful. And the reality too is there are going to be situations where people are just unhealthy.
Yeah, totally.
And you can do all you can do, and you can get counsel, and you can be kind. And at certain times, some people in leadership are just sick and need help, need healing.
Yeah.
And you guys listening, you'll know when that is, because you'll be believing you're crazy.
Yeah, totally.
And it's just like, man, this should not be this hard.
Yeah.
And so just ask for the Holy Spirit to give you discernment. And I just love so much of what you said, especially the voice acrostic. So helpful. We're going to carry that.
It was helpful
forward.
to me. I was like, thanks, Lord.
Validation. Yes, Lord. So let me ask you this, just as we wrap up. These are kind of both just where you're at now, because I know you did some story work with us in Nashville a couple of years ago, then Freedom Academy with Carrie. Carrie's been on our podcast and really trying to help a lot of leaders pay attention to their heart. And maybe going back and going, man, where was my heart assaulted or wounded? And I've really never turned back enough to let the tears come for what was really hard. And I've thought that moving faster or doing more or whatever would be the ticket to escape having to go back and find that part of myself. But for you, in the work we've done, just personally, and even in this season, what do you feel like God's doing in you that maybe feels like this is where he has you right now? Here's what he's working on. And I don't know if you have an answer to that, but I was like, I'll open that up for Christy.
Yeah. It's maybe one and the same in terms of just like me getting to go through Freedom Academy. And I think I remember just that weekend, one of the first things I was confronted with was how, as a leader, and just having been in ministry for literally 30 years, really, how quick I am to like not let myself actually receive and really like what Carrie said that day was like feast.
Yeah.
And she like read a poem and we were to find ourselves in the story. And it was this bird, and this bird could hear, a song that was being sung. And we were kind of supposed to find ourselves in the story. And it was like, there was but what I wanted to do was actually just stay and feast. I could hear the song,
Right.
but I felt guilty. And it was like, oh, I should probably go help. This sounds like a sad song. I need to go help this person.
Right.
But it was just so sweet because like, I'm learning that it's okay to not only receive, but actually feast as a leader. And we have to give ourselves space for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm also learning that, I'm not leading regularly at a church right now. Now that may change. That could change next week. I have no idea where the Lord's leading me in terms of like leading on a regular basis.
Right.
But what's been really sweet is that the Lord has just really come after my heart just as a worshiper.
Yeah.
And I just told my worship circle girls that last time we all met, because one of them is she's really trying to decide right now, is a season coming where I'm to lay down what this looks like. And I was like, make sure you just don't, you don't let, it's okay. I guess I was saying, it's actually okay to let certain expressions of our ministry and calling lie dormant for a season. I've had to do that with songwriting. I've had to do that with worship leading. But I'm learning that I'm not to ever let my heart as just a worshiper and God's child go dormant, and just to sit at the piano and just sing to him. That is something he's just calling forth in me right now. And that's been really sweet. That's kind of been unexpected. And I've actually had people text me that don't know each other and have said, Christy, I just feel like the Lord's calling you into a season where the song is just for him. It's not for anyone else. And that you are to spend time just singing to him. And so that's what he's doing in me right now, which feels like feasting, right? It just feels like
it also feels like going back to that little girl where it all started.
That's right.
The purity of that simplicity of that song for him.
Yes.
What a great way to wrap up that you're returning to little Christy.
Yes, for sure. Making mud pies.
Yeah,
that's where I used to sing.
Well, hey, thank you so much for being on and for all you do for me as a friend and so many in the kingdom, and leading your girls the way you have faithfully through the years. You've impacted, I know, generations. And our continued prayers for you guys and your family as everybody's launched into the world. And you and Nathan continue to do what you do.
Thank you so much.